Hey, Joe Martin here. You've seen our commercials over the years, and you may be wondering, what's in it for me? Well, ITI Technical College has been selected by Forbes magazine as a top 32-year college. But even more than that, the reason we do this is you. Our tagline is, for a better life, and we mean that, for you to be able to have the life you've always dreamed about, to do the things for your family you've always dreamed about. And it can begin here, where we are dedicated to your success, because here at ITI,
This is Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag, and I'm Lee Feinswag. We're in our 24th year, if you count Sports Monday and Sports 225, and the only way that could happen is, well, it's my show.
My best friend, Lee Feinswag, look at the Christmas.
Sports 225 is brought to you by Breck. And now, me.
Well, it's a special Sports 225 because former pro baseball player Eddie Bonine joins me. You didn't think I was going to start there. That'll teach you before we start.
Some will argue with that.
There you go. Well, but it's still true.
Yeah.
The LHSAA commissioner who has a job that sometimes I say, why would anybody want that job? And I can always ask him that and tease him about that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
So we were talking because last week I was in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where at one point Saturday night and early Sunday the temperature dropped as low as 19 degrees below zero. But the worst part was on Saturday morning. It was only like 12 or 13 below. I was drinking coffee, looking out the window, and watching people jog. But you said you went there when you played pro baseball, but I want to hear a little bit about your pro baseball career.
When I was in AAA with the Tucson Toros, that was the Houston Astros AAA affiliate, the Calvary, let's see, what were they? The Calvary Cannons, I believe at the time was.
I remember the logo, the Calgary Cannons.
But we traveled in Tacoma, which was the A's AAA affiliate. We'd go Vancouver, which was the Brewers. We'd go to Edmonton. In fact, Moose Stubik, I don't know if that name rings a bell, but he also was a Division I NCAA basketball official, but he managed the AAA affiliate for the California Angels, at the time the California Angels. And then we would go to Calgary, which I believe at the time was maybe the Seattle Mariners, or I can't really remember. Yeah, we used to go up there and hit a couple of Calgary Stampedes in the summertime. But the temperature would be nice during the daytime, and boy, would it get chilly at night. That was back in the days of the old thermal underwear. You wore them even in the middle of summertime up in there. Yep.
How many years did you play pro ball?
That I could count, just over 7.
Really?
Almost 8. Yeah, all minor league experience. Spent.
Where'd you start?
Started in Sarasota, Florida. I got signed out of college. Everybody went to rookie ball, so we went down there I was there for about 4.5 weeks, and then Daytona Beach was the old Florida State League, and then I played in Columbus, Georgia, in the old Southern League, and then in 3 now almost 4 years in AAA with Houston and Tucson. All were in Tucson.
When you saw Bull Durham, that must have been incredible for you. I mean, really.
Well, there's a lot of Bull Durham that is true, and some that's been kind of exaggerated, but. The minor leagues are special. It took me places I never had an opportunity to go, as well as I played in numerous Caribbean cities as well, traveling, playing in winter baseball. That is correct. And so it took me places I would never gone. I was a young guy, and it worked out well. And like I said before, it beat the heck out of working at that particular time. But I just had surgery. Dr. Andrews did a surgery on me. In fact, Dr. Andrews did a surgery on me in 1980, I think 84, 85. And I healed and came back and pitched. And then many years later, he did Tommy John surgery on my oldest son, Eddie Jr., and when he was with Detroit. So we have the dubious honor of both father and son having been cut on by the same doc.
Dr. James Andrews, and he's the best. That's amazing. I'm so glad. Well, for some reason, I think that's a part of your life I wasn't familiar with.
Well, and I'm 61, and to walk down memory lane sometimes is difficult. I don't always remember, but I remember that it was like a whole different part of my life. And I retired when I was 29 years old. And of course, I was fortunate enough to have some good leadership through my college career. So when I was through playing baseball, I had a degree to fall back on and went right into coaching and teaching. And here I am today, sitting here with Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Go figure.
Yeah. Well, not that you would have thought while you were playing baseball, I might end up in Baton Rouge one day, but you might have thought about athletic administration and the workings of sports because you had that perspective of being in it for so long.
Well, and I did not. I wanted to teach and coach and went right into it. And some of my colleagues that I went to high school with and college with didn't have the opportunity to play professional baseball beyond college, and they went right in and used their degree and started teaching and coaching. So when I landed back in Phoenix, Arizona, which is my home state, they were around. I went back and did my student teaching, and fell right into a couple of jobs coaching and teaching with them. So it was kind of I was gone for a period of time and came back. They are now since retired. I'm not, even from the system. But I had some friends and colleagues there. So the transition from professional baseball to minor league professional baseball to going back and teaching and coaching, I thought was a good transition. But every year around February, you get that. You should be getting ready to go to spring training, and pitchers and catchers report that second week of February. We'd be there pretty much now, getting ready to report.
Right.
And with Houston, our spring training was in Cocoa Beach, Florida for 2.5 years, and then we moved to Kissimmee, a brand new facility in Kissimmee. So I spent a lot of time in the Orlando area during spring training and moving around that way. So yeah, it was fun.
How's your arm?
Enjoyed it. Pardon me?
How's your arm?
I can still throw strikes, but after I throw strikes the next couple of days, it's lucky I can do things with my left hand because I was right-handed and I have difficulty with a little any form of external rotation after that. Yes, sir.
But that's good though. The part about your former teammates got into the real world and they were able to bring you in. It's timing's the key to life.
It was, and I was fortunate, and I stayed in touch with some of those people. In fact, whenever I was playing in the Pacific Coast League, Phoenix was the old Phoenix Giants. It was the San Francisco Giants and had been for a long time. They're AAA affiliate. So when I'd come into Phoenix, I'd have a nice sized pass list, and I was in the starting rotation all through my career. So I knew when I was going to pitch and what cities I was going to pitch in, unless I got sick or got the flu or something, something happened. So I knew when I was going to pitch, and it was able to get people that would read the paper and know when I was going to throw, and I'd always get other tickets from other players that weren't going to use those, and put some people that I knew in the stands, and it was a cool deal. It worked out really well for me.
That's a great story. The only time I ever went to a PCL game, I was in Portland, Oregon. I was on vacation, and it was Kurt Ainsworth, who pitched at LSU and had a nice pro career, and of course now is with Mariucci and doing so well. But
and Portland was in the PCL when I was there. They were the Philadelphia Phillies at the time, the Portland Beavers.
Yeah.
And they had a little establishment. If you've ever been in City Park, it sets down in the ground. So they got this huge wall, and there's a mermaid out there on that wall, which I got a couple of bills from the Portland organization because people would just hit peas off me and bounce off that wall. But up on the outside was a street to get down into the stadium.
Well,
there was a place called the Bullpen, which was a place where you could get a nice sandwich and a glass of iced tea, and there was dartboards and pool tables, and it was kind of a hangout, and everybody knew that was where the hangout was, and especially they'd stay open later if we needed to get something to eat before we went back to the hotel. So Portland's a beautiful city.
Yeah. Well, what I surprised Kurt, he had gone from Baton Rouge to sign with the Giants and didn't get to come home. They sent him right to Portland, and he'd been out maybe a month, and I saw that they had a home game that day and went and visited with him, and we get a laugh out of that. I didn't stay for the game. He was going to leave me a ticket. I was like, no, I'm on vacation. I'm not staying for baseball. All right, Eddie Bonine's here. He is the LHSAA commissioner and deals with things that you couldn't even make up. And we'll ask him about some of that when we get back. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Hi, I'm the human dislike button. You may recognize me as the guy who enforces rules at Breck Parks. Check out my amazing presentation. Did you know? Motorized vehicles are not allowed in Breck Parks. Sales and solicitation are prohibited without permission from Breck. And my favorite rule, keep Breck Parks clean by placing all trash in trash cans. Come on, you can do this. For more information about these and other Breck rules, please visit breck.org/HDB.
Back on Sports 225, talking with LHSAA Commissioner Eddie Bonine, and we could spend the whole time talking just about his baseball career and ties to baseball and with his son and all the rest of it, and that's what we're doing in the break. But I got to ask him about some LHSAA stuff. Man, you and Canada, the last time I saw you was at the volleyball at the state championships in November, and you were dealing with some issues as you deal with every day.
Sure.
And sometimes I wonder how you get the wisdom of Job, like how do you know? But am I correct in remembering that you said one of the things you had to decide was whether an undocumented citizen could play LHSAA sports? Was that something that came up?
It did, and it was an item that we voted on and discussed at the convention, and we found resolve to get that piece squared away. It all boiled down to the rule that was in place was about having a Social Security number. And some of those individuals that you're referring to didn't have Social Security numbers. They did have a secure ID that was assigned by the state for them for numerous reasons.
So they could get an education.
So they can get an education.
Right.
And so we were able to piggyback that. A good presentation was put on by the author out of a school out of New Orleans, a principal out of New Orleans, and we did pass that. So it helped with that piece. It was whether it be 300 students or 30 students. In this case, it was about 30 plus students that we knew of that were in the New Orleans area that were soccer players. And we were able to get that in place. I stood the line on the way the rule was written, which was my charge as your executive director.
So you did not let them play?
I stood on the policy, received some pushback from special interest groups in regards to defending those athletes. I stayed by the rule. I did what I said I would do. I acknowledged the proposal that was submitted by that principal. We brought it to the annual convention. We voted on it, and it passed. So we resolved that issue.
So when you say it passed, so now they can play?
That is correct. Now we have a number that we can use, and it was if a student athlete transfers from a public school, or the language we use now, a non-select school, travels, then we're able to track the athlete. So when they do participate, in this case soccer, at a select school or a private institution, whether it be New Orleans or anywhere in our state, and they transfer in or out, we're able to know where they are, which we'd normally use a social security number. And that's what, so it was we got it squared away. We're good. That was one thing we passed that was a positive move.
I just remember thinking that day, because he was leaving to go address things and there was still volleyball going on. I was thinking, man, the stuff that comes up, for you, and every once in a while, do you just there's nobody probably you can bounce something off of. There's got to be some issues where you just have to like I said, have the wisdom of Job, for lack of a better term.
There are individuals with whom I can bounce it off. I have 50 colleagues that just like me across the United States. And right now in the overall pecking order, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, as you sit in your chair today, you've been doing this a long time, I'm about 16th on the list now out of 51 executive directors in regards to seniority.
Wow.
And maybe even less now because people are retiring. So there's been a regime change. But I'm in my 12th year as an executive director, 4th starting here. And
you were in Nevada before this.
I was in Nevada, and I've made as an assistant director and a director, and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people nationwide. So I have a lot of people I can run it by, and one I'll mention is Mr. Mike Colbruce, who's retiring this year, has been the executive director of the state of Washington for over right at 18 years. Anything that can happen in Washington has happened. And of course, he sits right in the shadow of one of the most liberal courts that there are in the Ninth Circuit. So anything that could happen has happened, and he's been a good colleague for me. And when I was in Nevada, he was also, prior to becoming the executive director there, he was in Montana, Wyoming, so he had been moved around. So he's been there 18 years. Well, so we have people I can talk to about issues that come up. And my colleague in Alabama, Mr. Savaries, has been in Alabama forever.
I went to high school with his brother, just as an aside.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So Steve's been in. Steve and I came in at the same time. Let's see, 12 years ago. In fact, he's been in long enough that by rotation, he's now sitting on the NFHS Executive Committee as the representative for Section 3, which is the southern states, basically the SEC states.
Yeah, he had the most highly publicized eligibility case in recent
happened.
memory.
Just happened.
Yeah.
Just happened.
Yeah, the girl who was ruled ineligible and then finally eligible.
USA basketball, that means yes, sir. So Steve and I have stayed in contact, and Mr. Jerome Singleton in South Carolina. The SEC, or the Southern Section 3, has really taken me in. We've known each other, and to come in like that. So it's all been good. But things do come up on a regular basis.
How many other states are there of the 51? Because I assume there's 50 states in the District of Columbia.
That is correct.
That have select, non-select, or private and public.
There are 3 other states that I know of that have an actual private school association, i.e. The Texas Association of Private Schools, TAPS, known in Texas. There's 1 or 2 schools in TAPS that are allowed to participate against the UIL, which is the University Interscholastic League, which is the same as the LHSAA in Texas. And there are a couple of football prowess schools that are on the private side. South Carolina has one, and Mississippi Independent has one, and Mississippi, and there may be a couple others. Virginia has one. Tennessee could, yeah. So there's a few.
Because I thought Tennessee was one that people referred to when the whole split thing was coming up here. They were like, hey, look what's happening there.
There was an academy there that was a huge lawsuit that went on in regards to some eligibility when they could play, which was a benchmark for a lot of this. But in the grand scheme of things, there's a few, and there's all, but the actual situation we have, no, sir, where you have 2 separate entities, those are more 2 separate entities, meaning one association, 2 governing bodies, 2 government. Right. We're unique in regards to where we have it set up the way it is now here.
Yeah. Well, it would be impossible to have Mr. Bonine on the show and not talk about that. And I held it off pretty good, though, for a whole segment and then most of the second. But in the third,
you laid
that's
the
how you gotta
groundwork, and
throw
here
out,
we go.
Throw out some softballs for some,
It was
whatever.
easy, and now here we are
There we
discussing
go.
that. But I knew
you
you were going to get there eventually.
All right, we got to take a break. He's Eddie Bonine. I'm Lee Feinswag. It's Sports 225.
Hi, I'm the human dislike button. You may recognize me as the rules guy for Breck Parks. Sometimes the rules slip past us, so I put together this amazing presentation. Did you know? Golf practice is only allowed at designated golf facilities. Firearms, explosives, and weapons are not allowed on Breck property. Metal detecting is allowed in some parks, but go to Breck's website to learn more about this and other park rules. For more information, visit breck.org/HDB.
It's Sports 225. I'm hanging out with Eddie Bonine, the LHSAA commissioner. We've talked about some really interesting subjects, but the whole public-private, select, non-select split has to dominate at least one segment of the conversation. So get me square on the whole football thing where now one element can decide how to be its own host for state championships.
Right.
Did I phrase that semi-correctly?
Yeah, you did. And now we have, this year will be the last year we have boys, all boys together, all girls together. Starting next year, select boys and girls will be at one spot. Non-select
we're talking
boys.
about basketball.
Basketball, yeah.
Right, okay.
I know your question was football.
But that's okay.
So football. So we had an author that presented for football, basketball, baseball, and softball in regards to where they can play their championships. And in this case, at the end of the day, what it looks like and is the fact that it'll be like the old days. Classifications 5A, 4A, 3A, 2A, 1A, or public schools or the non-select will play in the Superdome. Divisions 1 through 5 will play somewhere else.
They could play in the Superdome, right? If they contracted it?
They didn't want to play there because they said it was too expensive.
Got it.
So they're going to find their own venues. And right now what was passed is home and away. High C will always host, though theoretically the LHSAA could have 6 locations, the Dome being one.
Eddie, hire more assistants.
No, we're not going to do that because here's why. All they asked from us was footballs, first place, second place trophies, and the MVP award, and they'll take care of the rest. So I don't have to put any staff there, which whole nother segment. But that said, that's all we're asked of us. So we're going to continue to run the Dome like we always have. I said it publicly. I'll say it on your show. The fact that we have a group of athletes. And when I got here, it was all about the Superdome. My first event was I was introduced as the new executive director at a press conference at the Superdome. I watched that classic and then left and came back for my job in the annual convention in January. So, and I wasn't my first convention. I was named the executive director. My contract didn't begin until March. So the Dome was the Dome, and everybody and colleagues around the United States, they get into Lucas Oil or they go to the old Superdome in Seattle or whatever the case might be. Wow, you guys actually play your championship in the Superdome, and the kids want to get in the Superdome. It bothers me the fact we now have a group of athletes that when one group is playing in the Superdome, the other group could be playing at a high school facility, because right now the way it was passed was home and away. Mm-hmm. High seed always hosts, and then they'll agree. If they need to agree, they need to agree on a neutral site. So somebody in southern Louisiana could play wherever they're going to play, and the same thing in northern Louisiana, whoever the final teams are can play, or it could be at a high school site. Logistically, there's a lot of things I'm not sure was thought about in regards to, we hand out all academic awards. We have a good sponsor in ISC for that. We have numerous corporate partners, obviously our biggest being our title sponsor in All-State Sugar Bowl. Do they have enough people to travel and go out wherever they're going to be, with including some winter gear to wear outside, because those events could be outside. So there's just a lot of logistical pieces, Lee, that's really, I'm not sure how it's going to be handled, but I do know this, that I'm bringing back some research and bringing back some items to our executive committee in April. I had asked when we toured the state for the area meetings prior to the annual convention to give my staff and I, and a committee, if that be the case, we still have the school relations committee, which we haven't met in a couple of years, but let's work on the brackets we have now. Let's adjust and clean up what we have now. If we're going to stay with the non-select, select format, okay. You most recently, not sure when this is going to air, but you most recently have seen the basketball brackets that are out. over 60% of some of those people don't have winning records. We need to clean that up and get that back to where it's reasonable and fair to schools that haven't won a basketball game, shouldn't be in the playoffs. You and I both know it. You're a volleyball guy. If you've only won 2 matches and you're playing 30, why would you want to go to postseason? It's not fair to the athletes, and it's not cost efficient for not only the school traveling, but the host school. So we're going to work through all that with some proposal stuff in
Consolidation, perhaps, is what we're going for here.
We could, and then bring that back to the membership. But I'm going to present some stuff to our executive committee, which is selected by their peers to sit as a group of 25, selected by their peers to sit on the committee, and say, we have to clean this up. This passed, yes. We know that's going to happen, yes. What can we do to make it better? But let's attack the brackets first. That's what we're going to do.
In a little bit of time we have in this segment. So for football, with 5 divisions then in each public and private, I mean, we've all thought maybe there should be 3 and 3 or something along those lines. Is that genie out of the box and never going back, or is it possible that you could consolidate specifically?
I think that there's a possibility of taking a serious look at what we have in place right now and say it's time now that we need to take a serious look at this, because I truly believe that when the actual select, non-select was done, and it was done for football only, and that we had a vote on it for football only, and there was a vote on there wouldn't be any further splits, and now you know where we are now. Hence why when we were talking about taking the athletes, in this case football, out of the Superdome to go play somewhere else, what caused where we are today is the fact that we had 18 schools, that came in to play in the Dome, and not all those schools didn't get all their guarantees. And I'd communicated with them that was going to happen, because the cost, which is not a rental fee for the Dome, it's cost to run the facility, was going to be more, because we were getting caught up from the time we've been in the 80s, which I knew going in. But I only had 2 schools complain, and everybody else that we went was happy with it. And then that was the genesis. We already paid everybody this year. All the costs were paid. Everything was paid for. We're free and clear in the black, and we paid all the guarantees. It's unfortunate we're sitting where we sit today.
Okay, well, I'm going to be in the red if I don't take a break. So to stay in the black, we'll take this final commercial and hustle up, because we don't have that much time left. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Close at dark.
You want another?
I think they'll pass. Amplified music and sound is prohibited without permission from Breck. No alcoholic beverages on Breck property. Smoking of tobacco products is not allowed. Use of fire is prohibited except in grills. Gotta remember, Breck wants you to have fun, but in the right way. For more info, go to breck.org/HDB.
Coming down the home stretch of another Sports 225, thanks to John Williams from JCW for directing the show. And go to sports225.com for all the show listings of when we're on CST and Your View, and to see all the archive shows on the Sports 225 TV channel. Eddie Bonine's here. He's the LHSAA commissioner. Quick question. You've got venues that will be up for bid, like where the basketball championships are held. We already talked about the football, but where baseball and softball and other things, that process begins, is underway.
It has began. We just finished state wrestling at the Century Link in Shreveport. That's one as well. We only have, of the championships we have 5 that require bids, and there's direction that gives us on that. Basketball is not one of those, so we can shop around and find some spots, but we're gonna let everybody know that wants to be involved and take a look at it. And then my job with staff is to bring back into the executive committee for recommendation. Sulphur's baseball, softball, all of those are in the process of the venues and where does select want to have theirs, and where does non-select want to have theirs, and we try to spread this around the state. Sometimes it's feasible, sometimes it's not, but that's always been a philosophy of ours. And I would be remiss if I didn't say the staff that I have assembled right now is incredible. They are so dedicated, Louisianans, that they get it. They understand what we're supposed to do, what the LHSAA is supposed to do, and how we do it. And I couldn't do what I do every day if it wasn't for the staff that's assembled at our office and people that help me do it every day. So you alluded to it earlier, how do you do your job? Key to management, surround yourself with great people, and I have some outstanding worker bees that help me as executive director to make sure we're going the right direction with LHSAA.
Well, go to LHSAA.org to follow a lot of the things that they do. Eddie Bonine, thank you so much. Always enjoy our visits.
Thank you anytime. Thank you so much what you do.
Guy tells great stories and is insightful as well, and with a great perspective, and I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Sports 225, and have a good night.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry. See the mowers marching